Welcome to the webinar of our program, and I want to thank you for beginning the journey with me. This journey of exploring and discovering for yourself the art of being in the flow. What we're going to do in our webinar, during this webinar, we'll explore the fundamental principles of our art, as well as answer any questions that you may have. What we're going to learn is how to pay attention to energy and how to develop energy awareness that can guide you in your further exploration of our arts, as well as in many daily activities. As a result of learning energy awareness, you will be able to become much more skilled at making decisions that are more intelligent than decisions that most people make in their lives. You will also learn how to become more natural, which is a funny idea if you think about it, because in a sense, in order to become more natural, you need to unlearn or let go of some unnatural things that you've developed so that you return to naturalness. Well, that's exactly what we're talking about. We are going to learn how to rediscover the natural ways of being. Why? Simple. What could be healthier than being natural? So if you learn to be natural, or if you regain your naturalness, you will become healthier, you will become stronger, you will become more capable of connecting with your own inner nature as well as the nature of others. And by doing so, you will develop deep understanding of other people's motivations. And it's not only people, it's also other living beings, it's also groups of people, organizations, society at large. We will learn how to develop the ability to pay attention to the inner essence of things in general. It can be applied also to events in your life. It can be applied to finances or to politics. It can be applied to spirituality and many, many other aspects of life. What we'll do is we'll also learn how to develop a quality of awareness that will boost your level of self-knowledge. And self-knowledge, by and large, is the key aspect of any spiritual discipline that's worth its salt. Most people, when I talk to them about self-knowledge, agree with me that what we know about ourselves can be compared to a tiny tip of the iceberg as compared to a huge part of the iceberg hidden underwater, representing what we don't know about ourselves and our world. So, if we know just a tiny fraction of what there is to know, there has to be some way to know things that we previously didn't know. This interface between the tip of the iceberg and the rest of it is called awareness. Awareness is what allows what used to be unknown to become known. Without awareness, it's virtually impossible to get to know things that you previously didn't know before. And that's exactly what we will be learning to develop. There are certain prerequisites for developing awareness. One of them is attention. And without attention, there is no awareness. There is no way to become aware of something you don't pay attention to, at least for a brief moment. And attention is an aspect of human consciousness that has been highly suppressed or even eradicated in modern lifestyle. What I mean by that is you probably know how short of an attention span most people have who live a modern lifestyle. Let's see if you'll be able to watch this webinar till its end. We are literally experiencing the period of time in human history where attention becomes so truncated that the majority of population actually suffer from so-called ADD, attention deficit disorder. Now, if you mind, I would like to look into what is the meaning of attention. Attention is really the ability to focus your awareness that we were just talking about on something that we would refer to as the object of attention. Ability to focus also means that you are not scattering your attention. You are dedicating it to a particular object at this particular moment. If you develop this quality of attentiveness over time, you will get to know this object a lot better, just because you are observing what's going on with it, without any judgments, without any expectations, without any desire to fix it or change it. Now, that's something that a lot of people have to learn, because by and large, majority of people have tendency to have some expectations about things that they observe in their lives, whether it's a person, an event, or even themselves. They have certain desire to fix the wrong things that they observe, and they also have certain frustration that their expectations aren't met. And so it creates judgment. And with these judgments, expectations, and desire to control or fix things, we can't really be attentive, because the prerequisite for attention is called acceptance. Acceptance literally means that we accept something the way it is without judging it, expecting something from it, or trying to fix it. This also means that we have no intention. And intention is the killer of attention, because intention by definition means we intend something that isn't happening right now. And we assume that once that thing that we intend manifests, it will be better for us somehow. Otherwise, we wouldn't be intending it, right? That means that we don't accept fully what is, that we somehow try to fix or manipulate the situation so that it wouldn't match our expectations. And it's also based on some supposition that we know how things should be. Somehow we are supposed to pursue things that are good. But of course, nobody really knows what is good, because what's good for one person is different for another person, so it's very subjective. And also, it doesn't have perpetuity, because what was good yesterday may turn out to be not so good tomorrow, and vice versa. What appeared to be really bad the other day actually may turn out to be fantastic today. So, how do we make choices? How do we develop any type of projections of what we're supposed to experience and what we would like to experience? Do we have any way to plan? We learn how to plan, how to make choices, and how to manifest our dreams without being engrossed in the intentionality that is such a popular term in the many spiritual circles nowadays. Because intention literally kills attention. When we are intending, we are not fully accepting what is. And that means we are not paying full attention to what is going on, to what's available right now, or to who we are if the object and subject of attention is the same person, ourselves. Now, that's one of the major reasons why people don't learn or don't know themselves. It's because they can't pay attention to themselves very well, because they have self-judgment, or they have certain self-expectations which most likely were imposed by our bringing, our education, or religion, or some authority figures that instilled in our minds that we are supposed to be one way, which is different from the way we are. So there is a certain sense of judgment and also a hope or desire to fix the person that we are so that we would be somehow different. That means we actually cannot pay attention to ourselves. And that means that we cannot learn what there is to learn about ourselves. That's a simple and elegant explanation of why we have such poor self-knowledge as human beings. Now, some of us have greater self-knowledge than others. Those people are often the thought leaders, the prophets, or self-realized gurus. They don't have to be spiritual leaders, they don't have to be religious figures. They can be artists, or they can be simple peasants. It doesn't matter what the person does. What matters is how the person is. That's an essential aspect of our study as well. Shifting from the mode of doing, and especially the mode of having that most people are stuck in nowadays, and to discover the mode of being. So throughout our path, we will be exploring different gateways, and each of these gateways will be overcome or passed through by shifting from the mode of having to the mode of being. What we will also learn is how to perceive our journey as an opportunity to experience that which we hope or dream of experiencing right now, step by step, experiencing that which most people hope to experience as a result of reaching certain destination. That's why, for example, I speak of our journey also as the path of enlightenment rather than the path to enlightenment. Now, when you were signing up for this program, you probably didn't even think that you were signing up for a program leading you on the path of enlightenment. And this is a pleasant side effect of our practice. You literally experience enlightenment in small increments. Now, the funny thing is that many people experience glimpses of enlightenment in their lives. This is what we also refer to as satori, if you're familiar with Zen terminology, or samadhi, if you're familiar with Sanskrit terminology. Essentially, we experience glimpses of spiritual awakening from time to time. Some people have those glimpses more frequently than others, but what happens by and large is that we are not destined to just struggle along this path, so that sometime in the distant future we would be able to experience this self-realization. We actually learn how to experience bit by bit self-realization of each and every step along the way. That is exactly a distinctive and very powerful aspect of our studies. It's associated with the principle, one of the 4 cardinal principles of our art, being awake. Being awake means you actually experience awakening in the dream called daily life. Now, when most people experience this type of awakening, they realize, oh my God, when I thought that I was awake, I actually was really asleep. Even though I was thinking that I was living my daily life, I was actually living in the dream. This may sound like a bit of schizophrenic thought, but we learn how to recognize that essentially what we experience in our daily lives is no different from dreaming. Because the mechanism by which you know the dreams, which is what we call memory, is the same as the mechanism by which we know anything that there is to know about our lives. Wouldn't you agree that everything that you know about your dreams is based on your memory? In other words, you have to rely on your memory to know whatever you were dreaming about in the past. Well, that's exactly the same mechanism that allows you to know whatever there is to know about your life in general. The exact same mechanism of memory is what provides you the access to the knowledge about dreaming and living. So, what's the difference? Well, actually, we see that there is no difference. So much so that the stuff that dreams are made of is the exact same stuff that our whole universe is made of. It's called energy. If you graduated from high school, you probably agree with me that from a scientific point of view, everything is made of energy in our world. Isn't it? What do you think stuff is made of in your dreams? It's the energy of consciousness. There is nothing things can be made of other than that in our dreams. However tangible they may appear to be, however realistic our dreams may seem, however tangible our encounters, for example, with other dream characters may be, all of them are made of energy, including ourselves. Whatever represents us in our dreams, which is what we refer to as dream body, is also made of pure energy. Now, how is it different from what we understand if we really look into the true essence of things in our daily world? It's not different. Everything is made of energy in our daily world. The whole universe as we know it is made of energy. E equals mc squared. Or if you want to, you can replace E with chi. Chi equals mc squared. In other words, matter, as we know it, is a solidified manifestation of different energy fields. And depending on the perspective, it may or may not to be that solid, actually. Also, perception of time plays very strongly into our perception of our life. And it's very subjective. If you think about it, sometimes you may be in a hurry, rushing, for example, to catch a plane in the airport. And if you're running a bit late, you may be looking at your watch. Oh my God, I only have half an hour to get to my plane. And I'll look again. Oh my God, I didn't even notice, but 25 minutes only left. So where did 5 minutes go? Now you arrive to the airport and see the announcement that your flight has been delayed. And now you have a couple of hours to kill. And you sit around waiting for your flight, to be announced. And you look at the clock or at the watch, still 2 hours. And then a few minutes later, you look at the clock, hour 59 minutes. It felt like several minutes passed, but actually just a few seconds passed. If you've been through this type of situations or some similar situations in your life, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're an athlete, for example, you may sometimes feel like the time is condensed and you manage to accomplish so much in a very short amount of time. On the other hand, if you practice meditation, you may feel like you just started meditating and suddenly half an hour or an hour passed. Once we realize that perception of time and perception of energy and other types of perceptions of different three-dimensional objects and experiences are very subjective, in fact. That gives us an invitation to start paying attention to the true essence of things, because nothing is as it appears. Once we realize that nothing is as it appears, we no longer are concerned with appearances. So in other words, we learn how to shift our attention from the shape and form of things to their inner essence. And that's exactly what allows us to develop energy awareness, because the inner essence of things is energy. That's exactly what allows us to connect with our inner nature, if we start paying attention to our own inner essence. And without having connected with our own inner essence, it's really hard to connect with the nature of other people. So in order to connect with other icebergs, as it were, we need to drop down into the underwater part of the iceberg that represents our being. Then, underwater, we'll be able to connect with other icebergs a lot easier, because the underwater part of each iceberg is a lot larger than the tip of the iceberg. The tips of the iceberg often may have no way to connect, because the underwater parts of the iceberg are bumping into each other already. But if we're not connected with that deeper nature of ourselves, how can we connect with the other person's deeper nature? So that's one of the things that we will be learning, how to develop a clear interface between the tip of the iceberg and the huge bottom part of it. Another thing that we'll also learn is to pay attention to what happens to energy. As we just talked about time, the flow of time and the flow of energy go hand in hand. And since there is no way to really stop the flow of time, the flow of energy is just as unstoppable. And what happens then is we actually need to learn how to pay attention to this flow of energy, because it represents the flow of things in our universe. And if we pay attention to the flow of things, we may learn something about it. For example, if you go against the flow of things, that's the surefire method to turn your life into a nightmare. Just like in a dream. Go ahead and start struggling against the flow of your dreaming, and you're guaranteed to experience a nightmare of sorts. And if you learn how to be in the flow of your dream, then it actually transforms into a very harmonious experience. So, would you like to experience your life as a harmonious and pleasant dream? Or would you like to experience it as a nightmare? And it's not a black and white proposition, by the way. It's not like you flip a switch and you are in the flow, or you flip it again and you're not in the flow. There are degrees to which you may experience flow. And most people don't experience it just 100% totally all the time in the flow. Nor do they experience zero flow, because they wouldn't be alive. So what we do is we experience the flow to some degree. We will learn through our practice how to identify the degrees to which we are in the flow. Notice what causes us to experience more flow or less flow, and then make choices that will enable us to experience more or less flow as a result of implementing those choices. Now, that's a very intelligent way to go about being in the flow, isn't it? It's a no-nonsense process of developing greater and greater understanding of the law of karma, which is the law of cause and effect. If something causes you the experiences that you want to experience, but instead of doing this, you do something else that causes some other experiences, perhaps the ones you don't want. Doing the things that cause you experience that which you don't want and expect different results. The more desirable results would be a sign of insanity, wouldn't it? So we'll learn how to stop doing the insane thing all the time, which is, as a matter of fact, how most humans live their lives, without connecting the dots, without understanding the cause and effect. Most people experience what we call ignorance. They ignore the law of karma, and ignorance leads to suffering. That's a pretty fundamental precept of Buddhism. And there are several other interesting precepts that we'll also study and understand that we will also learn to transcend. Now, we're not going to be able to transcend it in the basic program, so we also have intermediate, advanced programs, and so on, graduate programs in our school. We will eventually learn to recognize that even Buddhism has its own limitations. For example, Buddha Shakyamuni taught that life is full of suffering. And there are real causes that cause the suffering. And the causes of suffering are, by and large, ignorance, attachments, and aversions. And there is a path that leads humans to escape suffering and experience nirvana, or the way of being free from suffering. Now, what you will learn from our studies, pretty much from very get-go, you will discover that the path to experience freedom from suffering is not something that leads to nirvana. It's not a path to nirvana, it's the path of freedom from suffering. Freedom is the way. It's not that the nirvana is going to be at some distant goal or destination that you will hope to achieve sometime later in this lifetime or in the next lifetime. Instead, you will learn how to experience freedom from suffering on a daily basis, thereby experiencing glimpses of nirvana on a daily basis. And the funny thing is that nirvana is highly overrated. What I mean by that is that if you never experience suffering anymore, you actually no longer have motivation for any further development. I've never heard of anyone who would experience any substantial level of self-realization without having experienced plenty of suffering. Have you? Now, if we realize that suffering is not a problem, then we may actually sometimes give ourselves permission to create a nightmare sometimes. It's a healthy thing because it will boost our motivation to awaken to the true nature of the dream that we somehow managed to turn into a nightmare. It's a lot easier to awaken to the true nature of the dream that's more like a nightmare, as opposed to a really pleasant and happy dream, because you're just so happy and comfortable in it that there is no need to wake up. Now, so what we'll do is we'll learn that there are really no good and bad things. It's all just different degrees, different shades of gray, as it were. And we'll learn how to navigate through this ocean of life where there are no good and bad things. It's just a variety of things that some of which we resonate more with and some of which we don't resonate with as much. And guess what? The ability to identify resonance is exactly what will allow you to make the most intelligent choices in your life. Because if you focus on things that you resonate with and you move in the direction of those things that you resonate with, you'll be experiencing greater flow. So the art of being in the flow literally gives you the freedom of choice to experience the flow and a very clear way to experience it. And also, you have the freedom whether or not to pursue the flow. Because, like we already discovered, sometimes it's okay to give ourselves a little nightmare here. Personally, I don't even remember the last nightmare I had, probably many years ago. So there are some other ways that I found to motivate myself. I will share them with you during our program as well. But what's interesting about our course of studies is that these fundamental principles will be persistent throughout each and every step along the way. The principles of being natural, attentive, awake, and in the flow. Now, is there a difference between being awake and being attentive? Yes. The main objective of attentiveness is to learn whatever there is to learn. The main objective of awakening is to integrate. So what we do is eventually we learn how to recognize that the dreamer of the dream and the dream world in which we find ourselves in our dreams are not separate. And this is something that will allow us to transcend the major dichotomy that has been bugging down each and every organized religion since any organized religion ever came to existence. That dichotomy between the creator and creation. They've never figured it out. If you know any organized religion that has figured out how to integrate together the creator and creation, please let me know. I'll be very curious to find out about it. In our practice, we do exactly that. We learn how to integrate creator and creation. And we start with our dreams, because it's a lot easier to do that in our dreams since it's relatively obvious that the creator of the dream is not separate or different from the world of dreaming that exists in the dreamer's consciousness. And once we really get it, it becomes a major transformation. That's one of the major aspects of enlightenment that people refer to when they talk about enlightenment, that you become one with everything. And we will also learn other aspects of enlightenment. For example, how to experience freedom from suffering or bliss, how to develop greater understanding, deep understanding of everyone, as well as compassion. And we'll also learn how to be in the flow, how to stop struggling against the flow of the universe and trust that the universe knows exactly where it needs to go moment after moment. So we don't need to manipulate it. We don't need to fight against it, thinking that we know better where things should go. Instead, we learn how to recognize where the energy is flowing. And then we can navigate and move gracefully, as if surfing the waves on the ocean of life. Now that's exactly what I call mastery. So we will be learning how to become masterful, not only in Qigong practice, but in the entire dream called daily life. And finally, let me give you a little overview of where we're going with this. Our program will also include improving our physical flexibility as well as mental flexibility. We will discover greater range of motion and learn how to move with a more graceful, more harmonious culture of movement. That's right. instead of doing forms or any particular choreographed routines of motion, we will actually learn the whole new culture of movement, which is radically different from the way that most people study Qigong, isn't it? The way that most people study Qigong includes a variety of different forms or certain premeditated maneuvers and techniques. And what we'll learn is how to actually develop a whole new culture of movement. It's like developing or mastering a foreign language. We'll start with understanding the alphabet of this language. There are certain principles that we will begin learning first. And then we will learn how to put a few letters together so that several principles integrated together will give us a word. And then we will learn how to put a few words together so that they would form a sentence. Eventually, we will be able to communicate with others using this language of harmonious culture movement. We will learn how to communicate not only with people but also with the rest of the world around us. We will learn how to also work with people even if they don't speak our language. In other words, they're not really harmonious in their demeanor or expressions, and we can handle that. We can even handle if they are suffering or they're in pain or they're aggressive or they're unhappy for whatever reason, and we can deal with that as well. But first and foremost, we need to learn how to empower ourselves. So we will learn a few practices dedicated to self-empowerment. I will be able to conduct an initiation into the practice of empowerment. That is the most important practice in our art. It literally serves as a cornerstone for the majority of more advanced practices. So you'll see that each and every practice that we engage in, each and every principle that we study, we never take it as an assumed value. We actually put them through serious testing. And if we really test them and get it, that they work and we resonate with them, then we will be confident applying them. If you just take some bit of knowledge from another person, be it myself or somebody else, without ever testing it, you probably will still have some doubt in your mind or some internal resistance to it. Or you'll just forget it because some other things will distract you from this practice. So you will not practice. You will not implement the knowledge that you could integrate into your life. And therefore, you will not receive benefit. By testing, you actually create a strong motivation for yourself to keep implementing what you're learning, and that will provide a guarantee of getting the benefits from this practice. So I encourage you to engage your practice partner. If you have a practice partner, great. If you still don't have a practice partner for any reason, find one. What I'm going to do is I'm going to offer you and your practice partner a unique opportunity. Regardless how much you paid for our tuition, what we'll do is we will offer you and your practice partner an opportunity to go through our entire program and participate in all these seminars for one tuition. So what happens is that you will actually have an opportunity to give a gift to another person, a gift of empowerment, enlightenment, that they will be grateful for the rest of their lives for. This is something that I encourage you to do for the person who you really care about, who you really would like to benefit from learning our art of being in flow. If you have any questions about this offer or any other aspects of our practice, please email me directly at tantrapa lama@gmail.com. I look forward to working with you. Until then, namaste.